The blazing morning sun. It was early in the morning, yet the sun was already high in the sky, shining with an intensity that felt more like midday. The moment I stepped outside, I was greeted by a wave of heat that wrapped around me like a thick, invisible blanket. The sky was clear, painted in a brilliant blue without a single cloud to soften the glare. The golden sunlight poured down over everything, the streets, the trees, the rooftops, casting long shadows and making everything shimmer slightly in the heat. Even though it was only 7:30 a.m., the warmth of the sun was unmistakable. The road looked like it was steaming, and the black asphalt seemed to absorb every ray of heat, radiating it back with full force. People who were out and about already looked exhausted, shielding their eyes with their hands or squinting beneath wide-brimmed hats. Some had towels draped around their necks to catch the sweat already forming, and street vendors were wiping their foreheads while fanning themselves. Birds perched on electrical wires seemed unusually quiet, perhaps conserving energy under the sweltering heat. The leaves on the trees didn't sway much, as if the wind itself was too tired to blow. The flowers, once vibrant in the cool dawn, were already beginning to droop slightly, wilting under the power of the morning sun. As I walked to the nearby market, I could feel the sunlight burning into my skin. It wasn't painful, but it was sharp, a constant reminder of the power of nature. I noticed how quickly my shirt clung to my back, damp with sweat after just a few minutes. The usually busy street felt quieter, with fewer motorbikes and cars than usual. Maybe people preferred to stay indoors until the sun calmed down. Despite the discomfort, there was something beautiful about the scene. The golden hue of sunlight on the buildings, the sparkle of dew quickly evaporating off the grass, and the way the shadows moved gently with time. It was a reminder that each day begins with strength and brightness. This blazing morning was a sign of how powerful and alive the world could be, even at the very beginning of the day. As the sun climbed higher, the air itself seemed to grow heavier. The warmth became a dry, pressing force that settled on rooftops, sidewalks, and shoulders alike. The metallic surfaces of parked cars began to gleam like polished mirrors, almost too hot to touch. Windows of nearby houses reflected the blazing light, and even the shadows under trees offered little relief. It was the kind of morning where every movement felt like effort, where even walking slowly made you sweat. In the small garden near my house, the plants were already reacting to the intense heat. The grass was starting to turn a duller green, and the soil had lost its morning moisture. Gardeners worked quickly, watering the plants while shielding their faces with wide straw hats. The water from their hoses steamed slightly as it hit the sun-heated ground, and the scent of warm earth and drying leaves filled the air. School children, walking to class, dragged their feet, their uniforms clinging to their bodies. Some of them used books or backpacks to cover their heads from the sunlight. Ice cream vendors and cold drink sellers began appearing early, ringing bells or calling out in hopes of attracting thirsty customers. Even the dogs in the neighborhood didn't run or bark like usual. Most were sprawled out in the shade, tongues out, eyes half closed. From the street corner, I could hear the hum of electric fans and air conditioners running behind windows. Inside the small warren nearby, the owner fanned herself with a folded newspaper while wiping beads of sweat from her neck. Her coffee kettle, already boiling, seemed to add even more heat to the room. Though the morning was still young, it felt as though the day had already reached its peak. There was no breeze to carry the heat away, and even the usual scent of morning fresh grass, morning dew, and brewing coffee was overpowered by the dry, scorching air. And yet, beneath the intensity, there was a sense of resilience. People kept moving, kept working, kept living. The sun may have been harsh, but it was also a source of life. It brought growth to the fields, energy to solar panels, and brightness to the world. Farmers in the rice paddies, despite the heat, began their day with tools in hand, determined to make use of every precious hour of daylight. In its own way, the scorching morning was a teacher, reminding us to slow down, to adapt, to appreciate the strength of nature and our ability to endure it. The sun had risen boldly, powerfully, and there was no doubt it would shine like this all day. Even far out in the countryside, the sun made its presence known early. Farmers who usually enjoyed a cool morning breeze now wiped their brows by 8 o'clock a.m. The rice fields, usually wet and misty in the early hours, shimmered under the sunlight as the water began to evaporate. The muddy paths between the paddies became dry and cracked within hours. Cows stood lazily in the shade of big banyan trees, chewing slowly, too lazy to move. Chickens scratched the ground in short bursts and then stopped, panting quietly in the heat. At the village well, people who came to fetch water finished their tasks quickly, their faces already red from the warmth. Children who once played barefoot in the open field now stayed under the roof, peeking out with curiosity, but unwilling to step into the blistering sun. Even the elderly, who normally sat on bamboo benches and chatted cheerfully, now preferred to stay inside behind cool curtains made of wet cloth hung over doorways. Back in the city, traffic lights blinked through a shimmering haze that rose from the roads. Office workers on motorcycles wore jackets not for warmth, but to protect themselves from the scorching UV rays. Some wore scarves, gloves, and sunglasses. Despite the early hour, street cleaners continued sweeping the roads, but their movements were slower, their breaks more frequent. Delivery riders looked weary before noon, their shirts soaked with sweat as they maneuvered through the busy, overheated streets. Sidewalk food vendors moved their carts into whatever shade they could find. Sate sellers, fried rice carts, and iced tea stalls competed not just for customers, but for cool spots. Cold drinks sold out quickly. Iced coconut water, cold herbal drinks, anything refreshing was in high demand. Even the ice itself melted faster than usual, forcing some sellers to buy extra just to keep up. In the marketplace, vendors used large umbrellas and pieces of old tarpaulin to block the sun. The smell of ripe fruit, fish, and spices mixed with the heat, becoming sharper, stronger. Shoppers moved quickly, squinting and bargaining with fans in hand, trying to finish before the heat grew even worse. The market buzzed with activity, but everyone could feel the weight of the sunlight pressing down from above. On the rooftops, pigeons flapped their wings lazily, avoiding flying for too long. Cats stretched out in the shade, hiding under parked cars or behind flower pots. The air shimmered like waves on a beach, rising from the ground in visible distortions.